All right. So welcome to our fourth Sunday, our final day together for the mental health module. It's been a lovely journey with all of you, and I look forward to this final day. I hope you brought lots of questions and experiences as you've been reviewing materials and videos and this and that. Anyway, so let's get started with our morning practice. So I invite you to find your spot on the mat, whatever serves you this morning. You could be in a hero seat or a rocks pose or a sweet seat. You could also lie down if that serves you better, or you could maybe make an incline and be reclined. All of you by now have a pretty good sense of how you like to start your practices in your body, and so I invite you to go there at this point and to invite yourself to arrive in this space, in this moment, in this community, as we once again come together to explore how yoga can support our mental and emotional well-being, awareness, capacity for understanding. And so as you arrive now, gently come into your body, inviting your body to settle on the earth in whichever shape you have chosen, finding perhaps a sense of connection to the ground beneath you, to the props that may support you, to all of the sensory stimuli in the environment around you. Just taking it all in through your sense doors, inner and outer. As you arrive in your body, as it shows up in this moment, with all its history in the past, its entire evolution across your lifetime. And perhaps notice how you conceive of your body in this moment, how you meet your body, how you perceive your body, and how you conceive of your body. This may be quite a construction of current experiences, perhaps infused by memories of how your body has changed and evolved over time. This experience of your body in this moment may even be flavored by worries you have for your body, not so much right here, right now, but in the future. All of this is sitting with you, all of your perceptions about your body, your memories of your body. All of it is sitting here with you or lying here with you in this moment. Let yourself sense into that entire construction of who you are as a physical being. And then perhaps, if you would like to try, notice how your body is with you in this present moment. What sensations are actually there? What experiences are moving through the body, moving through you in this moment physically? Maybe tuning in with curiosity to what is actually unfolding within this amazing physical layer of your experience. From the grounding to the earth, to the expansion of the crown of the head toward the sky, to the stability at your center, to your heartbeat, your digestion, whatever is present for you. Can you welcome your body just as it is in this moment? And can you perhaps notice if how you see what is present in this moment may be flavored by your expectations, your hopes? And then try again to meet your body just as it is, in an unflavored way. Not to deny the past or the future, but to truly be with your physical being as it is right here, right now, unencumbered. And as you meet your body in this way, perhaps you begin to notice that it is inseparable from your breath, your vitality. And so feel free to broaden your awareness to also include this vital layer of your experience, noticing how breath is unfolding perhaps. Inhalations followed by gentle pause, exhalations, perhaps another pause. And notice that as you are tuning into your breathing and your vitality, there may be stories of the past about your breath, your vitality, worries about the future, expectations grounded, of course, in deep experiences across a lifetime. Seeing, in fact, your entire life reflected in the breath, in the vitality of this moment. And then perhaps explore whether you can be with your breath and your vitality just as it is right here, right now. The emergence of a lifetime of breathing and having energy, and yet the uniqueness of this moment, this experience of your breath right now. The uniqueness of this inhalation, the specialness of this pause at the top of the breath, the uniqueness of the exhalation, and the specialness of this particular pause at the bottom of the breath. The unfolding of your energy, your vitality, right here, right now. The pulsation of life within you. An entire lifetime, past, present, and future, encapsulated in this moment. Each breath following another, each breath preceding the next, and yet each breath unique in and of itself. And as you are with your body and your breath in this way, you might notice that your mind is coming along for this exploration as well. And so take a moment to notice your mind state this morning. Quite likely a reflection of a lifetime of thoughts, a lifetime of emotions, feelings, affects, moods. A mind state perhaps even affected by your vision of the future, of what will come next. A mind state shaped by a lifetime of experience, a lifetime of prediction, a lifetime of meaning making, a lifetime of being in relationships, and yet unique in this moment. And so can you meet your mind state in this context and yet with the openness of heart to notice how your mind state truly is right now in this moment? There's no need to put labels on this. Just sense into it. Sense into how your mind is unfolding as a process. Perhaps there are mind contents that emerge as well. You can simply allow them to be. Maybe they're coming in the form of thoughts, one by one. Maybe they're coming in the form of stories unfolding, stories being brought to you by the past, stories being created by your expectations for the future. Narratives that sometimes emerge surprisingly because you didn't expect them. Narratives that are old and familiar, that are the same tune over and over again. A lifetime of shaping your thoughts, your stories, your feelings, your beliefs, your attitudes, your opinions. And yet there's nothing to do with that right now but to attend to what is actually present, uniquely present in this moment. Which story, which feeling, if any. And how do the process and the content of your mind interact in this moment? And as you are being with your body, your breath, and your mind in this way, in this moment, perhaps you can tap into that deeper wisdom, that deeper intelligence that gives you the capacity to engage in this vastness of awareness of a lifetime of influences, causes, and conditions, as well as that pinpoint focus of what is happening in this moment within you, around you, beyond you. This innate intelligence that we can hone over our lifetime, this wisdom that we can broaden and widen through awareness, insight, compassion. This deeper intelligence or wisdom that grounds us so deeply in our communities, where the causes and conditions of our way of being in this moment really unfolded and will continue to unfold. As you tune into this wisdom, this deep, profound knowledge of this wisdom and insight and understanding within you, is there perhaps an emotion, a mature emotion that's connected to this? An emotion unafflicted by wanting, by aversion, by fear. Perhaps the purity of joy or gratitude that you have this moment of reflection. Or perhaps a pure emotion of compassion for who you are in this moment, shaped by all of these experiences behind you and ahead of you. Or perhaps a pure emotion of loving kindness for yourself, for any suffering that you may have in this moment. or perhaps a mix of all of those, grounded in steadiness, in equanimity. Or perhaps none of these. Just be aware of what is there for you. Perhaps developing the faith that these mature emotions live within you always. Sometimes they are little seeds deeply buried in the earth. Sometimes they're sprouts. Sometimes they're flowers, flourishing, supporting you. Whatever they may be for you today, I invite you to bring your hands to your heart as you bow your head to your heart, to receive your experience just as it is in this moment, without any need to change anything. Open your heart to an intention that may be emerging from your deeper, wise, intuitive self. It may emerge simply as an inkling that something's there that you can't quite grasp. It may emerge as an image or a symbol. If you're lucky, perhaps it emerges as a word or a phrase. Can you embrace whatever shows up? Not looking for something, but receiving what is there. And then can you invite whatever emerged, however subtle or direct, into your heart, allowing it to expand through your body, your breath, your mind, your wisdom, into your joy. And perhaps even sending it outward silently into the greater web of life. And then whenever you feel ready, you can release your hands if they were lifted. You can open your eyes if they were closed, and lift your gaze if it was lowered. And for those of you who are still seated, I'm switching things up. I invite you to lie down. So for those of you who are already lying down, I hope you didn't get up. I didn't cue you to, so it's an interesting thing to notice if there was habit and you naturally got up. Anyway, for those of you who are still seated, find your way to the earth. Make sure you have access to your strap and your blocks, so within easy reach, so you don't have to get back up, unless of course you want to get back up. And find your way to your back. And even as you're finding your way to your back, notice how you are doing this. Can you do it mindfully? Can you do it in a way that honors your body, your breath in this moment? And so I'm still up because I'm talking to you. You can go ahead and start to lie down. You don't have to copy me. Just do so with mindfulness, right? With presence, with the awareness of everything you do to bring your body to the earth. And then notice if there was a tendency to want to just lie on the ground without props or with props. I didn't suggest one way or the other, and so just notice and then check in with yourself if that intuitive decision of using supports or not using supports serves you, or whether there is maybe a wiser choice that comes not from habit, but that comes from having sensed so deeply into how you are present today. And then if you habitually did one, see if there's something you would like to do of the other as you arrive on your back in this perhaps slightly more conscious way. And I invite you to start with the feet on the ground and the knees gently flexed. You could even step your feet mat width apart and let your knees support each other. And this might bring a bit more ease into the body. And begin to attune to your breathing. And then whenever you're ready, gently begin to bring a movement into the pelvis that reflects your breath, so that on the inhalation, there will be a slight anterior tilt of the pelvis. So you'll make the gap between the low back and the floor a little bit bigger as you inhale. Pelvis moves forward. And as you exhale, very gently allow the pelvis with the exhalation to roll posterior, to roll toward the back plane of the body as you ground your low back in the earth. If you would like to have some exteroceptive input, you could have your hands on the sides of your pelvis, not to guide the pelvis, but to feel the natural movement of the pelvis as it rolls forward with the inhalation and back with the exhalation. Now this is a natural movement, but you are exaggerating it a bit in that you're deliberately moving the pelvis in this larger range of motion that might be very much visible on the outside even, but that you're really paying attention to on the inside. So that as you breathe out and you release, you also feel a release of the low back into the earth. And as you inhale and open your heart, you also open that space between the low back and the ground. Finish the round of breath you're on and then take another full cycle. And at the end of the exhalation of that next cycle, keep your low back grounded to the earth. Maybe now the knees will naturally separate as the feet walk themselves closer together, perhaps in line, approximately, with the sits bones maybe a little bit wider. And keep breathing here, of course, but this time with the back grounded, the low back grounded. So there's a bit of engagement here of the deep abdominal muscles that keep your low back stabilized in this position. And then gently begin to lift your left knee toward the chest as you also move your right arm with elbow flexed toward the ground beneath you. Do this most likely with the inhalation, and then release down with the exhale, or maybe the other way around, and switch sides. If you would like to add a little bit of work to this, let the opposite leg straighten and float. This can be a pretty challenging movement for your brain. Continue to keep that sense of grounding the low back into the earth. This will keep your core muscles nicely engaged as you walk here through your limbs in the air. Left leg coordinated with the right arm, right leg coordinated with the left. These cross crawl patterns are very good for your brain, but they're also lovely for your body. And explore how this movement is emerging for you across time. Maybe in the beginning, the opposite leg is on the floor, foot is on the floor. Maybe as you move along here, that bottom leg actually stays in the air, the knee might extend fully, and it might become a little bit harder to keep the low back grounded on the earth. If you feel like you would like to add a little bit more physical challenge, you could begin to lift your shoulders off the ground. The head relaxes back. You're lifting through your core, and you might really feel your deep core engaging here, keeping the cross scroll pattern going. Couple more rounds. If you started with me on the left leg, right arm, and on the right leg, left arm. Release the torso and the head if they were lifted, and then the arms, and then the legs, or any other order that naturally occurred for you. And take a moment to check in with yourself. And when I say today, check in with yourself, just naturally invite yourself to check in with all of your layers. What are the reverberations in the body, in the breath? It should be fairly notable here. And what are the reverberations in the mind? Has your mind state shifted? Are there different stories or thoughts or feelings now? Not expecting change, but being curious. Always coming back into this present moment, knowing, of course, it was shaped by an experience that's already in the past. But that the current moment experience is powerful. And then from here, I invite you to stretch your right leg long on the ground, or to bend your left leg if they were both stretched out. And then to draw the left knee yet again close to the chest. If when you do that, your low back just pops way off the ground, or your right groin feels super stretched or tight, you might want to bend the right knee and bring the right foot to the ground. So yogi's choice. And the left knee, so the lifted knee, see if you can just place it pretty much above the hip joint, and then start by just moving toward extending the knee. So straightening the leg, and then flexing the knee. So the leg stays lifted and all the movement is happening at the knee joint, but you're holding yourself stable. The low back is still pressing in toward or into the earth. Using your core muscles, using your exhale. As you straighten and bend that knee a few times, notice what's happening in your right leg. The invitation is to flex, to dorsiflex the ankle, to get strong engagement through the right leg so that it's grounding into the earth. The toes are pulling toward the knee, toward the hip joint, and that right leg is fully engaged. Or if the knee is bent, you can press the foot into the ground and perhaps drag the heel toward the sits bone. So the obvious movement in your body is in the left leg, but there is so much else going on. Can you sense into the reverberation of this very simple movement throughout all of your layers? And notice any co-contractions in the body here. And then we probably had enough fun on this side. Go ahead and switch sides in your own way. Maybe you take a little shake or wiggle before you move to the right side. I like to tap out my legs on the ground and just wiggle my bum a little bit, but find your own way here. Maybe moving feet side to side. Maybe bringing the knees into the chest to see what serves you. And then when you feel ready to come to the other side, lift the right leg, the knee joint above the ankle, the knee is flexed, and find your spot for the left leg. So maybe the hip is flexed, maybe the leg is stretched out on the earth. Yogi's choice, right sides and left sides might be quite different. So come to this experience anew on this side without expectation. And then when you are ready, you can begin to flex and extend. sorry, the right leg. And you may notice, of course, you've probably already felt this on the other side, that at first your range of motion may be a bit more restricted. You might play with whether you're dorsiflexing or plantar flexing the right ankle. And notice how this affects the range of motion at the knee. Just interesting little anatomy train sort of observations. Continue to dorsiflex the left foot if the leg is on the earth, engaging the toes toward the knees to feel that left leg grounding in the earth. If your foot is on the ground on the left side, press that foot into the earth and maybe drag it toward the bum. Feel the low back grounding into the earth, supported by the breath. Notice the mind stories. A few more rounds on this side. Perhaps things are beginning to feel more settled just because of the familiarity now. Or perhaps things are less settled because of the effort that is involved in this seemingly simple movement. And then whenever you feel ready, you can release the right leg to the earth. If your left knee was bent, perhaps invite it to come to the earth as well. And just take a moment to tune in, to be with your body just as it is in this moment. Notice where the mind heads when that invitation is issued. You can stay here and continue to ponder and notice and become aware. If you would like, you can bring now both feet on the earth. And this is where you might want to use a strap if you would like, but you don't have to. Just decide whether you need some support for the legs and use a strap if you would like. The invitation is to first draw both knees into your chest. Doesn't have to be a huge range of motion, but just bring them close for a moment. You can feel how this nestles your low back even more into the ground. And then walk the right hip away and then the left hip away, so that you're in essence bringing some expansion, some axial extension into the spine. And it took out any like compressive force that may have come from the last movement. So you basically just lengthened your spine a little bit. You could even do that again, and you might even feel a sense of, oh yeah, if I do this a couple of times, it brings some ease into the back. And then from having settled your low back into the earth, stretch both legs toward the sky. And then if you would like, you could take a strap and catch both of your feet and just help yourself hold the legs up in the air. If you would like to use your core alone, then don't use the strap. But there's no shame in supporting yourself here with the strap. So you would just hold the strap lightly in your hands, not wrapping it around the hands, but using your grip strength to hold the strap here. And just feel the lengthening of the musculature here, or the resilience, I should say, of the musculature on the back of your legs. If you don't want to use the strap, you can simply release it to the side and know that it's there in case you change your mind. And then just plantar flex and dorsiflex your ankles a few times. So straightening and flexing the ankles. Just trying to give you anatomy terms to And if you do this nice and slow and you keep your low back anchored in the earth, you might feel that movement of the ankles all the way in your low back. Just depends on perhaps the resilience of your hamstrings. And then make a choice what feels better for you, dorsiflexion, so pulling the feet, the toes toward your body, or plantar flexion, pointing them up to the sky. And hold the right foot exactly where it is in the air as you then begin to lower the left leg down, nice and slow, keeping the low back anchored to the earth. And then, of course, lifting it back up. So the foot, the leg, doesn't ever have to touch the ground. If it does touch the ground, it literally just touches and then comes back up. So you're not releasing it to the earth. You are lowering it toward the earth. And notice how you would like to work with your breath here. For some people, it's easier to inhale down and exhale up. And for others, it's the opposite. So notice what serves you. Usually, if you have a more difficult direction, like if it's more difficult for you to travel up, it might be easier to use the exhale for that movement. If it's more difficult to go down, then use the exhale there. So just play with that. And then really stay aware of what happens in your body here with the effort of drawing the low back to the earth as you slowly, against gravity, lift and lower the left leg. Couple more times on this side. If you're shaking a little bit, that's perfectly all right. Notice if your mind creates any stories around this, about how this should be or shouldn't be. And when you've done your 2 more, then you can switch sides, or you can rest for a moment before you switch and go to the other side. Don't be too surprised if the other side feels very different. And remember, you always have the option of having the strap around the lifted foot to give yourself just a little bit more ease, a little bit more support. Yogi's choice. And notice if there is a story around using the strap. Notice how memory may enter this equation of, wow, I used to be able to do this and today it's really hard. Notice if you're moving quickly or slowly, whether you're speeding up the breath to catch up to the speed of the movement, or whether you can allow the movement to reflect a beautiful natural breath that stays slow and subtle despite the effort. Couple more times on this side. And then rest for a moment, and you get to decide what resting for a moment means. It may mean bringing the knees to the chest. It may mean just releasing the dorsiflexion in the ankles and the legs stay lifted. It may mean bringing the feet to the ground. Just notice, what would you like to do here to rest? Maybe it means closing your eyes and sensing inward. And let yourself rest in your own way. Sensing into body, breath, mind state, thoughts, feelings. Listen carefully to any stories that are emerging about what should or shouldn't be. Stories of evaluation or judgment or joy. Are the kleshas entering, or are the mature emotions coming on board? Again, no judgment, just noticing. It's the awareness. That's the beauty of exploration. So it's analysis, not in the service of judgment, but analysis really in the service of joy. If your legs have been lowered either to your chest or the earth, I invite you to bring them back up. And just notice what story emerges with that, like, oh no, not again. Or if it's a story of, ooh, we're moving on, it's all good. And then yogi's choice here. If what we've done so far has been pretty much some stuff that has made your core quake and shake, then I invite you to take your hands and bring them under your bum so that the fingers are giving like a little bit of support under the bum. So if you were to lower your legs a little bit, at some point you would realize that your fingers are kind of supporting the weight of the legs. You could just test this out by going part way down. If, on the other hand, you've been like, oh, this is a piece of cake for my core, there's been no shaking or anything, then let the hands be by your side. Because, of course, you already imagined what's coming next, right? We are going to lower both legs now to the earth, nice and slow. This time you can come all the way to the ground. Your low back will likely release a bit from the earth. And relax fully when you're on the ground. If your legs just sort of all of a sudden plopped down to the ground, if you lost control, then the next time we do this, and yes, there will be a next time, try the hands under the bum trick and you'll be amazed. You could also slightly lift your head away from the earth, which will kick in your core muscles and give a little bit of support. So let's try another one. So very mindfully come in by drawing the knees into the chest first, taking that rocking motion of the hips to walk the hips away from the shoulders, bringing length and release into the spine, starting with the low back grounded and dorsiflex. Draw the toes toward the body, really bringing resilience into the back body. There's method to, or there's reason for what we're doing here. And notice if this time your legs can actually come closer to the body rather than being directly above the hip joint. Maybe there is more range of motion all of a sudden, and maybe there isn't. There's nothing magical about it. Just notice that maybe something shifted. Often we don't even notice that, oh, wow, our legs are actually closer now than they were before. All right, and then, of course, now comes the second lowering of the legs. So you have some hints now of how you can make this a wiser choice. So not moving so much based on habit, but now moving based on using history, using memory for the betterment of the future, and begin to release anytime. You know now whether the inhalation or exhalation serves you better, gives you more strength, as you nice and slow lower, if you aren't already there, the legs to the earth. And relax. We will do this one more time. So whenever you are ready, bring the knees back into the chest. Walk the hips away. Whenever you're ready, you can straighten the legs. Dorsiflex at the ankles. See where your range of motion is, where your starting point is for the movement. Maybe the third time will be easier and you try without hands. Maybe the third time will be even harder than before because you're getting tired and you start using hands now. So let each movement be a new movement. And then whenever you are ready with either direction of the breath, the one that serves you better, gently, slowly lower those legs down, keeping the low back as grounded toward the earth as you can. and release and let go whenever you've arrived on the ground. And notice the reverberations of this effort in your body, your breath, your mind. Notice if your koshas have come fully on board, or if they've released. Maybe aversion yielded to joy. Maybe clinging or grasping yielded to the wisdom of doing this in your own perfect way. Just notice. Maybe your mind state gives you clues as to whether the koshas have released or intensified. Because as you likely have heard me say a million times before, the mind states are basically the gunas, the koshas, and the rittis made visible. And then from here, I invite you yet again to bring your legs into your chest. And then to yet again extend the knees. This next movement is absolutely yogi's choice. You have to know your body to decide whether this is something you would like to try. But the invitation is, and you can have a block nearby, hopefully. The invitation is here now to press the hands, palms down, into the ground and to begin to lift your pelvis off the floor. Maybe the legs float behind you. And perhaps your hands come to your glutes on either side. If that feels very precarious for you, you can take the block and take it the wide direction and place it under your sacrum. This should feel comfortable. Angle the block a little bit so that the edge that's away from your body is actually lifted off the ground. You can put your fingers under it to sort of create that little bit of slope. And you're making a slope for your sacrum to rest against the block. Be very particular about how you use the block. So really have your fingers under there to make that little bit of a lift at the edge that's pointing away. This creates the perfect slope for your pelvis. This should feel very, very comfortable. And the weight of the block on your hands typically doesn't hurt. If it does, you could take your strap, roll it up, and put it under that far edge of the block, and it will give enough lift to support you. If you're using your hands, you're likely a bit higher than the block is. So that's yogi's choice. If you need to look at the screen to figure out what I'm talking about, please get up, look, and then come back down. Preferably don't turn your head in this position. Most of the time that won't do harm because we're not in a full shoulder stand, but we have enough weight on our shoulders that moving the head side to side is probably not a great idea for all circumstances. So it's nice to just be aware. And then play here with whether you want to dorsiflex or plantar flex at the ankles. And rest in this legs up the wall position without a wall. And then if over time you would like to experiment, if you're on the block, with lifting the pelvis again on a little bit higher under its own power, using the strength of the core we've been cultivating and bringing the hands under the hips, you're absolutely welcome to try this. And then whenever you are ready to do so, lift your hips enough to bring the block out and then lower your hips down
using lowering one vertebra at a time, and feel the low back regrounding to the earth, and then allow the legs to return to the earth in the same way that we did before we went into candlestick. Once the legs are on the earth, lift the head, or rather lift the shoulders, and the head follows along. So don't lead with the head, and slowly begin to curl up to come into staff, into Dandasana. For some of you, it may be really nice here to use a blanket under the sits bones and maybe all the way to the tops of the femurs. For some of you, you may be surprised that you're sitting in staff right now in a way that feels way more comfortable than it ever has, because we've really prepared the body for this position. Notice if it might serve you to take your hands to your thighs, to internally rotate the thighs. This may bring even more ease into the seat. And hopefully you have your strap still handy. If you do, well, either way, grab your strap, even if you have to come out of Dandasana for a moment to grab it. And then lasso your feet with the strap around the balls of the toes. And the strap being held by your hands, of course. And gently press the feet into the strap at the same time that you're pulling on the strap with your hands. And notice how this brings even more of a sense of uprightness, I guess I'll call it, into the spine, a sense of ease, as you truly ground your legs into the earth now. So the grounding that you've been doing with the low back all along, you're still kind of keeping that, but now you're also creating a grounding of the backs of the legs along their full length into the ground. Now, not all parts of the backs of the legs may actually feel the ground tangibly. And just notice if you can sense here where you begin, where you end and the ground begins, or vice versa, or whether it's just sort of a coming together of your body and the earth here. And notice how beautiful the support is from the strap as you maybe explore whether the hands want to go to a different point on the strap now. Maybe they don't, that's perfectly fine. And then on pause at the end of the exhalation, so as you exhale and draw the low belly in, exaggerate that drawing in of the low belly, and see if you would like to lower forward through your torso a little bit more on that emptiness of the belly. The back stays in exactly the same position as it was, so you keep your natural spine, the low back protected by that exhaled breath here. Of course, you can continue to breathe, but that same sense of sort of stabilizing the low back as you explore whether you would like to fold forward just a tiny bit more. No goal here, okay? The goal is simply to explore what is shifting, if anything, in body, breath, and mind. With each exhalation, on that empty breath, as the belly is drawing in, you might explore whether there is a little bit more of a desire or a capacity, but not a wanting, not a klesha, right? But a wise inclination to move a little bit further forward. No outcome, no goal, just exploration. Maybe at some point the hands come to the toes, maybe they don't. The goal is not to make that link because you have the strap already to make that link. And keep breathing. If you notice that your breath is dysregulating, you've probably exceeded that joyful expression of this shape and moved into a klesha expression of this shape. So the breath becomes or continues to be a beautiful feedback mechanism for you. And if you would like to explore further, at some point your low back may round just a tiny bit. If that is comfortable, if you know that your vertebrae are healthy and your discs are healthy, maybe you even relax and release over the legs. This is yogi's choice. Notice how you are making this decision. Is it a koshas-based decision of wanting, or a vrittis-based decision of I've always been able to do this, I should do this now, or I saw this in yoga magazine, so I should be able to do this, so I'm going to do it. Or if it's a, oh wow, my spine is warmed up, my core is ready, I'm ready to just release, a wise decision. And rest wherever you have landed. You might be fully upright in that beautiful Dandasana shape. You might be released forward. You might be anywhere in between. And then notice the reverberations of this folded shape as your gaze is toward the earth, as your perspective may be shifting. If you are in a forward position and your head is not resting on anything, you could take a block, place it on your legs or a pillow or a blanket and rest the head. One thing I really like is I cross my hands so that my right hand comes to my left toes, my left hand to my right toes, and then those crossed arms make a perfect cradle for my head. Be here for about 2 to 3 more rounds of breath. And when you have completed those 2 to 3 rounds of breath, wait for an inhalation and let the inhalation guide you back upright to your staff pose. Lifting with the strength of your core, coming out the way you came in, finding the natural spine and rising up. Coming back to Dandasana, either with or without the strap. Taking a moment to tune into all of your layers, your body, your vitality, and your mind. Taking a moment of quietude to be with yourself. You can stay here, or if you would like, you can bring your hands behind you so that you can release the feet, the legs away from the earth, to bend the knees. And we'll come to standing. So yogi's choice, one fun way is to begin to rock and roll for a few rounds and then to come to standing that way, or you can simply lift up. So yogi's choice. From here, I invite you to widen your legs and to have your block ahead of you on the mat. You can stand pretty wide apart. And then notice which direction your knees are pointing and allow the toes to follow in the direction of the knees. So rather than having some arbitrary alignment of the feet to the mat, let your own body determine what feels comfortable for your knees, where you don't feel any tension or torquing in the knees as you stand in this wide stance. Bring your hands to your sacrum. You're in essence kind of cradling your SI joints with your hands. This is nice exteroceptive feedback about what's happening in the low back, the lumbar, all the way down into the sacrum. And bring your mental attention to your hip joint, which is actually a lot farther in than most people think. A lot of people think their hip joint is out here where the greater trochanter of the femur is, but the hip joint's actually cradled in the groin region. And as you begin to move forward, I'll show this from the side, as you begin to move forward here into a wide-legged forward fold, come from the movement of the hip joint. So you're keeping the back in that natural position that you were in Dandasana as you lower yourself down into essentially a half lift with the hands coming to the block. You get to determine the height of the block. We're starting, like I said, in a half lift, so the torso is parallel to the earth. And just allow yourself to arrive here for a moment, to feel into your body, to notice if there's any adjustment that needs to happen in the placement of your feet now that you've changed a dimension at the hip joint, right? You've moved from extension into flexion at the hip joint. This may create a different reverberation into the knee joint, and that may then require a different placement of the ankle joint and the foot. And so stay very connected to your physical experience, your breath, and your mind, because your mind may be telling the story of, oh, I've always been told to have the feet parallel to the small edges of my mat. I need to do that. And just explore whether you really need to do that in your body or whether that's a need in somebody else's body that doesn't actually fit your anatomy. And then if you would like to slowly begin to travel forward, maybe you come to a lower setting on your block, both hands resting on the same block. If that's uncomfortable, if you have a second block, you could have a block for each hand. And then perhaps coming yet another setting lower. But maybe not. If you feel a lot of rounding in the low back, then ask yourself, why are you moving lower? Is it that this is actually serving you, or is this the fantasy of the shape needing to be needing to unfold in a particular way or into a particular outer expression? And let yourself be present with what actually is, rather than with the story, rather than with the misperception. And continue on to see if you would like to release the block altogether. The head is still lifted, so you're still gazing at the floor ahead of you, not letting the head hang quite yet. Maybe notice as you're settling in here whether there is a genuine wish for a wider stance. Maybe as your adductors are releasing here, a wider stance feels more comfortable. Maybe not. And so again, move without expectation of a particular outcome, but with pure perception of what actually is. Yes, there will be memory involved, and yes, there is probably a little bit of clinging to a particular outer shape, but to the degree that you can be honest with yourself, can you release those koshas? Can you free the memory and the imagination from the wanting and the grasping? And can you simply allow yourself to come into the joy of what actually is, into the compassion of what serves your body? Can you be loving enough of yourself, your body and your breath to find a pure expression of this shape that is yours, that reflects your truth? As you then perhaps release forward a little bit more, finally allowing a release through the spine, the head, without a goal of bringing the head, the crown of the head to the earth, but simply exploring what wants to emerge for you here. Maybe the hands stay firmly grounded where they originally landed. Maybe the hands now have an inclination to move between the feet on the earth. Just notice, what is your truth? Or maybe both of your hands are actually lifting off the earth altogether and are coming to rest on your sacrum yet again. Just notice that there are all these beautiful options that we often overlook because we strive for a particular outer form rather than embracing a genuine expression of a shape. Let yourself arrive in your forward fold, knowing you can always rise up if you need to or want to. If your hands are lifted to your sacrum, make a conscious choice whether you would like to lift up from there, or if you'd rather reverse out of the shape with the hands first on the floor, then on the low setting of the block, and then a high setting, and so on. But take another round of breath. Wait for an inhalation. Draw the pelvic floor in when you're ready, and then rise up. Your stance may be wider now than it was when you descended. So just gently heel toe your way back together. And find your way into mountain. And reset here. I'm coming to my knees so that you can see me, but please don't follow. Be in your mountain, unless you prefer to be in mountain on your knees. Maybe even close your eyes if you feel steady and stable. And come home into your body yet again, into your breath, into your mind. Tune into your mind state. Perhaps notice your mind content. And then whenever you feel ready to do so, walk your way to the small end of your mat and come into a squat. Perhaps the legs are mat width apart, feet mat width apart. And maybe for a moment you draw the hands to your heart as the knees press into the elbows and the elbows press into the knees. Notice if your core is engaged, if your pelvic floor rises up, creating stability and strength for the low back. You can stay here exactly as you are, or if you would like to have a bit more movement before we come into our supine position for our closing meditation, you can come with me through a few rounds of frog kriya. If you'd like to release onto your back, you can do that. In frog kriya, you're going to plant the hands now on the ground ahead of you. And as you exhale, your legs will straighten. And as you inhale, the knees will bend. And exhale, straighten. Inhale, bend, head and chest come forward. And just do that a few rounds. Using your core, the strength of your pelvic floor, the rhythm of your breath to find this gentle Kriya for a few rounds, only as much as you want, only as fast as you want, not at all if this doesn't serve you right now. And see if you can move mindfully here, body, breath, and mind, all in this flow together. And if you notice that one keeps drifting away, maybe this flow doesn't serve you right now. Take up to 5 more rounds. And if you don't want that many, of course, by now you know you can begin to settle yourself onto your back. If you've done your 5 rounds and you haven't quit yet, do go ahead and stop. See if you can release your bum to the earth without excess movement through the control of your core. And then release yourself into your choice of your final resting shape for the closing meditation, and then also for Shavasana. Of course, there's always the option to shift if you picked something that in the end doesn't serve you, but allow yourself to have lots of props and supports for this closing meditation. And settle yourself in your own way. You're all very wise. Only you know the temperature of your room and whether you might need a blanket. Only you know your proclivities in your upper body and whether a blanket or a pillow serves you under your head, reaching all the way down past that junction of C7 and T1. Only you know your low back to know if a lift under the knees might serve you. And so be very deliberate, very loving, very kind, making these decisions from your mature emotions, from your compassion, your loving kindness, not from your kleshas of wanting a particular outer or inner demand. Give yourself conscious permission to check in with yourself one more time, to make sure you didn't just follow habit and conditioning, but that you settled yourself in deliberately and lovingly. And then notice whether it feels appropriate for your current context to close your eyes. And if it does, I invite you to do so. If it doesn't, I invite you to find a soft gaze. To gently sense into your body. To arrive with your breath, however it unfolds in this moment. As I tell you about the migration of the monarch butterflies along the California coast that's happening as we speak. So every year, the monarchs migrate from the northern western coastline to the southern western coastline. And they migrate through Santa Cruz, and then they migrate to Santa Barbara. And there's a beautiful eucalyptus grove in Santa Barbara where they congregate, where they come together as they migrate south.
And they hang very high in the trees here in big clusters. And they fold up their wings, and they're almost indiscernible from the eucalyptus leaves when they're really high up in the trees. And when it gets cool at night from the ocean air, they make these very, very, very large clusters where they all come together. And then they move into a bit of a state of freeze, where they don't move much. And if you're not careful looking, you won't see them as living, breathing beings at all. They are in a big cluster, and there's very little life, seemingly. Each butterfly kind of shutting down, becoming very still, unmoving, kind of frozen in the cold night air. Seemingly lifeless, and clearly intent on survival, on making it through the chilly night. And then when the warmth comes back the next day, this whole cluster of monarchs suddenly comes to life, stirring itself out of this seemingly frozen state into chaos, utter chaos, as they all move and the cluster disperses. Butterflies everywhere, wherever you look, butterflies. There doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason to the spectator. Maybe there is rhyme or reason to the cluster, I don't know. But it seems chaotic as their systems reawaken, and as these beautiful butterflies reflutter their wings, activating, coming to life, fully present, finding the opposite spectrum of survival now as they revive themselves, coming to life, stirring, flying, getting ready for a new day. And slowly they disperse, each butterfly finding its own path. And when you follow any one butterfly for a while, sometimes you can walk along their path with them, you begin to notice there's still a lot of fluttering, there's still a lot of movement, but it becomes more and more intentional. It seems a bit distracted, butterfly moving here and there. And yet there's an intention there that goes beyond just survival. There's an intention now. There's a purpose to the movement. There's a capacity to continue to come back to that purpose. And yes, I may be anthropomorphizing a bit. So the movement seems at times erratic or distracted, but then it becomes clear that this butterfly is flowing through the air, and it does have an aim. Because at some point, that distracted journey for that particular butterfly ends on a flower, maybe on a trumpet vine, maybe on an aloe. And all of a sudden, all distraction or seeming distraction disappears as the butterfly settles on this flower and begins to feed, to draw in
the nectar. Still now, fully concentrated on nourishing, clear in its intent, settled. Beautiful to behold in its quietude. And sometimes, as a spectator, we get very lucky and we're there when the butterfly is done but comes to rest on that flower or somewhere adjacent and rest in its own luminosity, nourished, still, safe in the spot it chose for itself. If we were to attribute human emotions, they would be mature. There's a seeming sense of equanimity, of being simply present in this moment. There's a purity. There's no more searching, no more doing. There's a simple resting in the moment, a peaceful quietude, a stillness that is altogether vital, and a vitality that is perfectly still and motionless. Beauty embodied. In this small butterfly. We too can embody such beauty in our own beings when we come into stillness, into luminous presence, when we relinquish our striving, our needing, when we relinquish and let go of our fear of just simply having to survive somehow. When we come to rest in our own equanimity, hearts filled with love, with compassion, and with the joyful gratitude that we can feel for a given moment. And perhaps with this image of this beautiful, equanimous, luminous butterfly in your heart, I invite you into about 2 minutes of silence until my voice brings you back. And very gently begin to reawaken your senses. Perhaps taking in the outer environment through all of your sense doors, hearing the sounds around you, noticing the aroma in your room, perhaps feeling the soft touch of air on your skin. And perhaps you begin to notice your body again from the inside out. Noticing sensations, sounds, movements within you. Perhaps noticing your heartbeat, gurgling in your stomach, a desire to move or stretch or wiggle or to remain in quietude. Reconnecting to your physical being lovingly, compassionately. Reconnecting to your body's deep connection to the breath as you shift your attention, perhaps to your energy, your vitality. Perhaps giving yourself the joy of a conscious round of breath. Fully aware that you're drawing breath in as you inhale. Fully aware that you're releasing breath out as you exhale. And perhaps reconnecting to your mind. Curious about your current mind state. Fully content and equanimous about whatever meets you here. And then perhaps using this beautiful capacity of your mind to plan, to plot a path through which you will bring yourself back to a seated position. And then taking all the time you need in the next 20 seconds or so to make that transition to a seat. And settling yourself into a seat once you've arrived there. And once you have found your seat, if it serves you and feels auspicious for you, I invite you to place your hands to your heart as you bow your head to your heart. Tuning in perhaps to the miracle of this human life that you've been given. The capacity you have to connect to yourself in so many ways, through so many layers of experience. Perhaps reflecting with gratitude on your capacity to bring to bear your deeper inner wisdom, to know how to be in this world in a way that serves you as well as the greater good. I invite you to take a moment to ponder if there is a takeaway from class today that you wish to settle into your tissues, that you may wish to settle into your memory banks, that you wish to honor in some way. And perhaps that takeaway in some way connects to the intention that you had set for your practice this morning. And perhaps in that combination, a dedication emerges. Some greater wisdom, some greater purpose that you would like to take off the mat and into your life. And if such a dedication or even an inkling thereof is present for you, you might choose to draw it into your own heart with your next breath in. And you might choose to send it silently outward into the greater web of life with your next breath out. And thank you so much for joining me in this practice this morning. It's a joy, an honor, and a privilege to practice the beauty of yoga with all of you. So let's take a 10-minute bio break. So we'll come back at 10:15. Sound okay?